Okay, this slideshow will go over the Dramatic Literature PowerPoint 2, and we're going to go ahead and get started with that. This will be a fairly quick lesson. So the first thing is I want to review the idea of the tragic hero. So we need to pull up this slide. This has a very nifty video that is helpful for understanding the tragic hero. I'll let it play out for So that's pretty much a review of the system, Aristotle's system of tragedy that we discussed in the first slideshow, and that is also discussed in a slightly different way in your textbook reading, and that you should have saw it played out in Oedipus and Antigone and also in Othello, and it's with some uncertainty that it's played out in Troy Maxon. Troy Maxon is one of those characters where you can argue for him being a tragic hero. You can also argue for him not being a tragic hero. I'm trying to get past this slide here. Here we go. So remember the tragic hero. These concepts carry over to early modern and modern drama. Early modern is Shakespearean drama. Modern drama is the drama of the early 20th century, the late 19th century is sometimes classified as modern as well. We start seeing modern drama in the 19th century. Shakespeare knew Aristotle's theory of tragedy and framed his great tragedies with it in mind. So that's one of the things to consider is that we know that Shakespeare had an understanding of this theory of tragedy. It was something that was taught in schools at this time and discussed by writers. One of the things that makes it difficult to see the tragic hero in the same way is that Shakespeare's tragedies have more levels than the ancient Greeks' tragedies. And one of the reasons is because he was playing to a different sort of audience. He was dealing with a more stratified audience. Now, yes, the Athenians had different, different economic classes and that sort of thing. But in Shakespeare's time, the stratification of the audience was much greater. So you had the lower classes down in the groundling section. They were called groundlings, and they would often be played to through comedy and the comedic aspects that still appear in Shakespeare's tragedies. Not everything in Shakespeare's tragedies is tragic. A lot of it is there for humorous reasons. So we have this humor that is interspersed through the play to keep the audience from being too overwhelmed by the staged events, which sort of undercuts the catharsis, if you ask me as a reader. I think that's one of the problems in Othello is that so much focus is given to Iago, actually. Iago has so much weight in that play that we become more enamored with Iago and less enamored with Othello. And so we don't feel as much grief when Othello does finally fall for Iago's manipulation of him. As you read the critical casebook on Shakespeare, you needed to take notes about the differences between his audience and the audience of ancient Greece. You should think about how entertainment plays more of a role in early modern theater. And Shakespeare's plays were not part of a religious ceremony; they were part of a social environment. But royalty would often be there, and royalty was very much intertwined with religion in this time period. So he had to be very careful on how he presented royal figures. He had to be very aware of how royalty would be perceived or how royalty might perceive his tragic heroes. So here on this slideshow, there's a version of Othello that you can actually watch. I'm not going to have you watch it here. There's also a great version with Lawrence Fishburne that you can rent on Amazon Prime. Uh, you you should have already read Othello, the Moor of Venice, but if you haven't yet, do read it. In some ways, Othello fits Aristotle's definition of a tragic hero. In other ways, he is very different. And that's some of the things you should take notes on as you're reading it. Now, the modern theater. The modern theater focuses more on realism. Realism is an attempt to make the play's actions and staging as close to reality as possible. And this is something that Fences does. There's also another play in your textbook that you can read. You don't have to write an essay on it, but if you want to read a really great play, it is fantastic. A Doll's House with Nora. Nora is a tragic hero. It's a female tragic hero, much like Antigone. And realism was pushed by playwrights like Henrik Ibsen, who is the author of The Doll's House. So it's really a precursor to our contemporary theater. The tragic hero still appears in these texts as well. Contemporary theater is much more character-driven, voyeuristic, breaks with the unities. Often it is unclear who we as an audience are supposed to support. This extends to contemporary theater. Now, we have here a video of a local repertory theater doing Fences. You can watch that video as well, and that'll help you better understand the play. It's not the best video quality, unfortunately. If that new film version of it uh, with the names slipping past me right now, uh, but with there's a new film version that's coming out, and it should be out by the time you're watching this video, and it might even be out on DVD by then, depending on how successful it is. There's that new film version. You can also access that, which is based on the Broadway version. Now what? Well, be sure to complete all the readings measuring the protagonists of Othello and Fences against Aristotle's definition of tragedy. So you need to read the plays and you need to pick out specific quotes, specific lines from each play that illustrate each of the elements of the tragic hero, and you need to set that up as a compare and contrast essay. Select the protagonists Othello and Troy Maxon to compare and contrast using the definition of tragedy as your points of comparison. And that's it. That's all that's involved in the essay. So basically, are they tragic heroes? And then if they are, why are they? If they are not, why aren't they? And use specific quotes from the plays to back it up. So that's all I have for this last lecture on dramatic literature. Everything's pretty cut and narrow, straight and narrow for this for you all. I hope you found the lecture helpful, and I will post this to the class, and I look forward to reading your papers.